Hey, morning, Robbie. Welcome to our first episode of brand new season of Coffee Chat. So, Robbie, this is actually you are the first guest to our session, and of course, then I'd like to introduce you a little to our audience here today. Yeah. So, Inchz IoT has been, our leading IoT solution provider and RFID company, and you have been leading as a managing director in this company. We'd like to thank you for the support. You've been helping a lot of our customer and especially the retailers recently. I actually came across some interesting statistic online by this Malaysia Digital Chamber of Commerce, the MDCC, and there's actually some of these statistics that talk about shrinkages, which probably I like to hear from you a little based on your expertise and so on. So some of these statistics that actually share things like the external theft that attributed 41% to the statistic, damaged inventory about 19%, the vendor fraud about 14%, and employee theft actually contributed about 14%, as well as internal errors about 11%. So, based on the statistic that I just mentioned, since external theft that actually has contributed to very high percentage. So based on the experience, can you actually share with us how can RFID technology, able to help the retailers in reducing these shrinkages that resulting from external theft, like shoplifting example?
Yeah, of course. I think first of all, shrinkages comprises of many forms. One of the toughest one is always theft. But let me share a bit of context about the theft lah. In many cases, losing an item seems to be just losing a cost for the products, but in fact, it is actually losing a sales. So meaning you are losing your profit as well, right? Worse if you are running a retail duty-free shop like those in airports, right? In fact, when you are losing an item because of internal or external theft, right, you still have to pay for the duty and taxes, as well as the penalty imposed by the custom authorities. Yeah, so you have triple impact, in fact, right? But again, with the emerging of like mobile POS, self-checkout, and plus the economic downturn, right, we are actually expecting a growth in external theft. People tend to steal more, right? And traditional EAS may be helpful, but the thing is you couldn't derive any analytics as in what being stolen, when being stolen, and how many and which one being stolen to derive your countermeasures, right? So to me, a proper RFID anti-theft setup with good quality of course, RFID tags and devices can actually reduces the external theft cases by differentiating the paid and unpaid items, right? And on top of that, I think external theft may also happen by many different tricks. Especially in this part of the world, right? People are very smart. They derive a lot of new tactics in stealing things. For example, they swap the price tag, from cheaper products to a more expensive product, and then they paid using the cheaper price, right? And of course, second is that they tend to have a forced goods return, meaning they buy something, they paid for it, they bring home, and they bring back the receipt without the items, and they just grab another one from your display shelf, and they come to your POS counter and they ask for a refund, right? So of course, the first problems, tax swap, happen more frequently, whereby we can actually overcome by having incorporation of RFID plus AI camera right at your POS counter, whereby the technology can actually differentiate what you are actually paying for, right? It matches the RFID price tag, the SKU, also called the part number, being recognized, plus the AI recognized part number. So it will trigger alarm, of course, if it doesn't match, right? And the second problems of having the false goods return, I call it, can be overcome, of course, easily by RFID, because when you return something physically, you have to prove that that piece of item is actually the one you purchased, right? By having the RFID ID. So that is easily solved, right? So this is the two tricky so-called external theft that's normally happen, right? And on top of that, right? So I mean, imagine you are running a retail. So of course, when theft happens, you will have to claim for insurance. But in order for you to claim for insurance, you have to have evidence, right? So a lot of times, evidence has to be supported by some camera footage. So that is why I always encourage that retailers should have AI camera to be integrated to the RFID systems to have a combined approach in capturing the evidence, and so that you can actually file in your insurance claims. Yeah. So that's basically what I would suggest. Yeah. Mm.
Thanks, Robbie. Thanks for this detailed sharing on this external theft, as in, what's the solution in resolving this issue. So it was also mentioned about employee theft. So how can a retailer tackle this then?
Yeah, employee theft, or I call it internet theft, is even more tricky because you don't know when does it happen and how does it happen most of the time, right? Because the internet staff, they know very well about the day-to-day operations, how things being keep track and scanned, right? So what we normally do, right, is actually by having a regular stock take, essentially to actually map the stock balance versus goods being sold, right? So the simple mathematics formulation is that stock balance minus your sales minus your theft detected supposed to be your internal theft, lah, right? Because like the first question I mentioned, right, the external theft is already being captured or detected by the anti-theft, RFID anti-theft. So meaning you can actually derive from the stock take, lah, right? So but essentially you need to do a more frequent stock take. But of course, conventionally, for a manual stock take, it eat up a lot of your resources and time, right? And a lot of time, staff don't like to do it because it's so much of hassle, right? And you have to do it like off operation time, especially retail. You have no choice but to do it off office hour, off operation hours, meaning you have to stay back at late at night to do the stock take, right? So nobody likes it. So, but with RFID in place, you can actually impose something we call shift-based stock take, meaning you can do it as frequent as possible, like morning before you start operation, and evening before you leave your retail outlets, right? So by doing so, every shift will have a clean cut that I start from fresh, meaning I start from a clean inventory balance. And before I go home, I do another round of stock take that will give me another clean closing as well. So then on the system wise, I will map into the daily sales versus the opening balance and versus the closing balance. So I have a clean so-called accountability that I'm not liable for any theft of the day. Then I can go home with peace of mind, right? Then same goes to the next day, right? So the new shift or the same shift will take over from me, will have to do the same thing. And of course, everyone is liable for the operation of the day, of the shift, right? So by doing so, in fact, we have actually practiced the same approach to some of our clients, and it's proven works for internet theft because they know by end of the day, they will have to prove themselves clean before going home. Yeah. So that's something I would advise. Right. Yeah.
Thanks, Robbie. I also have another questions that maybe you can help, me with a little bit more insight, So what about the problems like damaged inventory and inventory errors? Can RFID technology help in this area, and like how?
Yeah, certainly. In fact, throughout the years, I've been promoting RFID, and in fact, one of the key problem statement, or so-called the objective of the project, is always to have a better management of inventory. Yeah. So of course, inventory again is about your capital. It's about your cash flow, because a lot of times you tend to have a lot of dead stock or overstock, to be left behind in your warehouse or in your storeroom or in your outlets, right? That of course tie up your, the financial cash flow, right? So and a lot of times, the biggest problems that holding the expansion back is actually what I call human mistakes, right? It happened during the transfer of goods, from warehouse to outlet to outlet to outlets, and of course to from outlet back to warehouse. So they will always tend to have a lot of human mistake by capturing the wrong SKU, color and size, or maybe a different quantity, right? So accumulatively, of course, this will derive inaccuracy of inventory balance on top of the theft cases, right? So by having an inventory inaccuracy, right? So you tend to do a very poor replenishment, because you do not know what you have or what you doesn't have in your outlet, right? So of course, by having a understock, right? So a lot of times when customer walk in with some checklist, wanted to buy something from your shop, but end up they couldn't get the stock available immediately. So what they do, they tend to buy from your competitor, right, or the next store, right? Especially for men, they go shopping by just checklist, knock off the what things to be bought, right? So they want to just kill it off by buying on the same day, right? So those are the things that will cost you a losing of your sales, right? And the easy fix, the quick fix is always to have a simple stock take, and an easy stock take to solve this problem. Because why? Because inventory inaccuracy is because you doesn't know what you have, right? So, but the only, also not to say the only, the easiest method to fix this problem is by doing stock take. But again, conventional stock take is it's just too painful, right? But again, by using RFID stock take, you can do it as per your wish. You can do it like once a day, again, once a week, or once a month, right? So of course, once the stock take is being done, your inventory accuracy tend to go up to the optimums, and then you know what to do next. You know what to replenish. You know what to transfer, because some of the dead stock you may want to kill it off by transferring to some other retail that is selling good, with that SKU. And some of the product maybe is really dead stock that you may want to do some promotion discount to actually just clear it off, yeah, rather than stocking up in your warehouse or in your outlet, which is wasting the space, right? Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Robbie. I think you have actually pointed out accuracy of inventory data that will actually help the customer, or the, I would say, the customer to be able to manage their inventory efficiently. That will not result to any loss of opportunity. So I suppose you have been talking to so many retailers, and so what is the biggest concern that the retailers face, in the digital transformation journey of them?
Yeah, indeed, I've been talking to a lot of the founders, or so-called the owners of retailers. In fact, especially after pandemic, right? So all of them are actually quite eager to do some kind of transformation or digital transformation, right? In fact, they are actually can't wait for that. But just that a lot of time they do not know where to start and how to start, right? Of course, what came into their mind is, to be frank, is RFID. Always they come to their mind is RFID, but RFID, a lot of times they heard about some failure projects here and there. How bad it is when it's being implemented somewhere else by maybe their peers, right? But to me, RFID is like a double-sided sword, it hurts when you don't manage it well, right? Reason being is that to make an RFID project successful, it's not just about tech or scanner, you know, it's about the domain knowledge. It's about the radio wave knowledge, how to actually control the radio wave. It's about IT infra. It's about mechanical, electrical infrastructure. It's about database. It's about hosting. It's about integration to POS, ERP, EMS. It's about choosing the right text, of course, the right encoding formats, the conventions, and many, many more, right? So, in a nutshell, engaging an experienced vendor is crucial, right? Of course, the next thing is that a lot of retailer brands, right, they tend to uh, eye on the initial capex, meaning they tend to go for relatively low cost hardware, of course, with the idea of saving some capex investment. But to me, of course, personally, I have experienced that. To me, you start by having maybe a slightly lower capex, but you end up having a long-term damages, simply because the failure rate is higher, and then the instability of the performance, ended up you start to lose hope, or start to even blame on the technology that RFID is no good, right? And the worst case, even failing the whole projects, right? So that kind of damages is even higher, right? So yeah, again, I mean, if I can suggest, right, so I always encourage them to start small, maybe break the project into phases, and but to think big lah, to have the end game or so-called the bigger picture to be in place from the beginning, and of course to do it right from the beginning and scale it up, right? So by doing so, of course, they feel safer, and then the success rate is much higher lah. So of course, chances of losing the capex or even the opex is not there, lor. Yeah.
Hey, Robbie, thanks so much for all the insight and the discussion. And of course, thanks for sharing all the tips on the retailer's digital transformation journey with RFID solution. And last but not least, let's enjoy our coffee. Thank you so much for the time.
Welcome.
Cheers.
Cheers.